The light-haired man, alarmed and pointing upward, drew attention to the sky, while the dark-haired man, surprised and sweaty, questioned the appearance of the monstrous entity looming ominously above the city. As the monstrous entity cast its shadow over the city, a mysterious silhouette figure stood against the crimson sky, heralding the dawn of the mythical era. As vicious ghosts began their invasion of the world, terrifying creatures descended upon the chaos-stricken scene as a dark-haired boy ran frantically, chased by menacing beings, while a brown-haired boy scrambled in panic to escape their relentless pursuit. In the midst of this chaos, a group of diverse characters, each mastering their unique skills, emerged to showcase their weapons and magical abilities, signaling a powerful stand against the encroaching threats. The encouraging message in the white text box urged those facing the daunting challenges to elevate their ranks and amplify their strength, infusing a sense of determination amidst the chaos. Amidst the intense battle, the awakened ones fought against the ghostly monsters, carving out a space of survival for humanity as a mysterious hooded figure focused intently, aiming a bow at a leopard monster, while a determined sword wielder guarded against a wolf monster with unwavering alertness. In a triumphant display, a heroic and commanding armored warrior raised a glowing sword against the fiery backdrop, symbolizing the dawn of the mythical era and the rise of awakened professionals. As the anticipation reached its peak, an unknown speaker announced the commencement of the awakening ceremony at the school amidst the rustling of trees in the foreground. With anticipation in the air, the authoritative dark-haired man addressed the assembled students, informing them that today marked the day they would awaken to become professionals. As they gathered around the glowing magical platform, the bearded instructor, Luhu, passionately addressed the crowd, emphasizing that their future destinies were directly linked to the day's events. Among the hopeful crowd, the confident young man, Funhao, walked forward, reflecting on his years since transmigrating and expressing his wish for every student to awaken their desired profession on this pivotal day at Haising High School. As the tense atmosphere lingered, an unnamed speaker called for Fanga to step forward, and he confidently agreed to do so, embodying determination amidst the scrutinizing gazes of his peers. With determination etched on his face, the dark-haired young man confidently walked past the crowd, embodying the resolve to embrace his destiny amidst the watchful eyes. As the dark-haired young man continued his path, two girls nearby discussed with intrigue and excitement what profession might awaken to, guessing he would become a priest due to his handsome looks. While a mysterious man walked by in the background, the man in sunglasses critically remarked on the importance of professions over appearance, prompting the confident blonde-haired man to agree, while an observant background figure dismissed their statements as mere jealousy of Fanga's good looks. A focused and observant bearded man intensely examined Fang Zhao's profile, noting his excellent physical fitness and academic prowess, while a mysterious figure surrounded by glowing circles approached. The bearded man thoughtfully contemplated that it was no wonder so many were paying attention to Fang Hao. In the shadows of the room, the dark-haired young man, focused and determined, reached out and activated the glowing magical symbol, setting into motion the mysterious forces that lay within. With an unwavering gaze and eyes aglow, the dark-haired young man looked intently forward, his determination solidifying as he embraced the mysterious forces now coursing through him. As the Uruk spectators watched the powerful energy blast erupt around the lone figure, they marveled at the possibility that Fang Zhao's awakened profession might be as extraordinary as his reputation suggested. A mysterious and urgent figure clad in gloves reached out with surprise for the swirling green energy. As the room buzzed with the potent magic unleashed by Fang Zhao's awakening, the atmosphere grew even more ominous as a massive dark force crashed onto the large field, signaling the arrival of a new, daunting challenge. A bearded man, astonished by the swirling energy around him, pondered what incredible profession this young individual had awakened to trigger such a phenomenon in heaven and earth. As the bearded man's thoughts lingered on the incredible awakening, a horde of skeletal warriors and cloaked figures led by an armored skeleton advanced menacingly towards an unseen target, their glowing eyes fixed on the ominous tree with a gaping M. The dark-haired boy stood resolute, facing the formidable mystical figures who loomed over him with an air of intimidation as he prepared to confront the looming challenge with unwavering determination. Amidst the intimidating mystical figures, the haired boy confidently raised his sword, channeling the swirling energy around him with a triumphant stance. The dark-haired boy, now identified as a necromancer, found himself enveloped by dark energy, surprised yet resolute as he acknowledged his new profession and the swirling power that accompanied it. As the dark-haired figure stood amidst the swirling energy, he pondered whether this newfound path was truly his destined profession. The dark-haired boy, still processing the swirling energy and his newfound identity, looked puzzled as he turned to the group, who were laughing hysterically, seemingly amused by the situation. The blond boy, along with his companions, mocked the dark-haired necromancer's awakening, finding it amusing that such a rare profession was considered the weakest among combat roles. The dark-haired boy turned his attention away from the laughter to confront the shadowy figure. Considering the warning about necromancer's dependence on the undead realm's connection, the mystical and eerie skeleton with a sinister aura reached out toward the determined robed figure, questioning where living humans could possibly learn about the undead realm given the inherent opposition between life and death. With determination flickering in his eyes, the confident necromancer Feng Zhao examined the glowing display of his attributes, asserting internally that his uniqueness set him apart from others. As a powerful fist punched through the glowing barrier, the system congratulated the determined dark-haired boy for awakening the undead realm experience system, marking a triumphant moment in his journey as a necromancer. Holding the glowing green orb with anticipation, the dark-haired youth, feeling a sense of long-awaited destiny, acknowledged the arrival of his golden opportunity, albeit 18 years late. As the eerie green energy pulsed around him, the system informed Feng Zhao that he had unlocked a connection to the undead realm, automatically generating a clone to aid him on his path. The system explained that Feng Zhao, now able to explore the undead realm through his skeleton clone, could devour other undead creatures to level up and grow stronger, while warning him about the unknown risks of summoning the clone to the real world. The dark-haired figure, fully embracing the ominous potential of his necromancer abilities, conjured green energy with a determined focus, realizing that the system was indeed perfectly suited for his exploration of the undead realm. The mysterious and confident shadowy figure smirked, embodying the dark allure of the powers that Feng Zhao had just begun to grasp. With a dramatic flair, an unseen presence commanded the mystical forces to summon, echoing the intensity of Feng Zhao's newfound necromancer powers. As the eerie atmosphere enveloped the scene, the skeletal figure with glowing eyes acknowledged that the clone standing before him was indeed his own in the undead realm, while an unseen narrator explained that he could briefly possess it to experience this otherworldly domain. Swirling with eerie green energy, the skeleton clone demonstrated its formidable ability by devouring other undead creatures, enhancing its own power, and allowing the host to summon the slain entities to fight. In reality, the sinister skeletal figure surrounded by undead warriors contemplated that by killing enough adversaries, it could maintain an endless supply of summons. The dominant and ambitious armored figure standing against the foreboding red sky and jagged landscape confidently declared that the entire undead realm would serve as their hunting ground. The skull-faced figure, exuding a commanding presence, decided to postpone the exploration of the undead realm, instructing the system to bring the clone into the real world immediately. As a mystical green aura swirled around, an unseen entity communicated its understanding and began the process of summoning the skeleton clone. A glowing magical symbol radiated energy, casting a mystical ambience over the scene. As the summoning process unfolded, the skeletal figure, menacing and mysterious, stood before the glowing magical symbol, embodying the ominous energy that filled the air. The dark-haired man, determined and confident, summoned the skeleton clone directly into reality, marking it as his most powerful summon. The authoritative bearded man with an inquisitive air called out to Bai Shurao Chan, who stood composed alongside the mysterious skeleton figure, questioning internally how such a promising individual awakened to this unusual profession. The girl in yellow with unwavering optimism encouraged Fanga by expressing her belief that he could achieve legendary status as a necromancer and admired the coolness of the skeleton he had summoned. The blonde guy, visibly annoyed, complained loudly to his companions about how Fonzeo, despite his seemingly weak necromancer profession, still attracted admiration, questioning the fairness of it all, a determined character scheming to disrupt Feng Zhao's progress, resolved that shattering the skeleton would significantly impede Feng Zhao's advancement as a necromancer. The blonde man, calm and focused, confidently held his sharp, glowing arrow, casting a tense atmosphere as the skeleton figure observed menacingly. The white shirt figure, calm yet powerful, extended a hand that emitted a dazzling burst of energy, intensifying the charged atmosphere as both adversaries prepared for the impending confrontation. The skeleton warrior with its glowing blue eyes menacingly threatened the adversaries, declaring its hostile intent. The dark-haired young man, embodying confidence and composure, stood amidst swirling energy waves, his power radiating with unwavering assurance as he prepared for the challenges ahead. Amidst the charged atmosphere, a blonde-haired man exclaimed in surprise as he noticed something had suddenly disappeared. Seizing the opportunity, the skeletal figure, its eyes glowing ominously, aggressively dashed towards the blonde-haired man, who stood frozen in shock. With a fierce determination, the black-gloved figure delivered a powerful punch to the face of the blonde man, whose expression shifted from shock to pain. In the midst of the turmoil, an imposing and powerful monstrous figure fiercely attacked the blonde boy who was caught off guard while a dark-haired girl watched in surprise. Amidst the chaos, the bloodied man lay on the ground, his shock evident as he questioned how such an unimaginable event could be possible. Bruised and in pain, the blonde man desperately struggled to rise from the ground, his earlier shock now replaced by a grim determination to endure. The blonde man, clutching his face in anger, confronted Feng Zhao, demanding to know his intentions. As the blonde-haired man realized the skeleton's formidable capabilities, he reflected with frustration on how it had even detected a sneak attack from a blind spot. The dark figure stood enveloped in smoke, its menacing presence suggesting that while a skeleton mage's summon might be powerful, the mage's own physical strength remained limited. A determined figure raced swiftly across the grassy field, driven by urgency and intent. In a furious outburst, the fierce blonde man lunged aggressively at the calm, dark-haired figure, intent on unleashing his wrath. With focused determination, the dark-haired young man calmly blocked the incoming attack, showcasing his resolve amidst the tense confrontation. With a fierce determination, the dark-haired man delivered a powerful punch to the blonde man, sending him flying as the latter cried out in shock and pain. Charging forward with a glowing fist, the dark-haired character asserted with confidence that overestimating one's capabilities was a mistake. The dark-haired figure, driven by fierce determination, struck the blonde figure with a powerful energy-infused punch, leaving the latter stunned and struggling to comprehend the sudden assault. As the defeated blonde victim fell to the ground, bleeding and overwhelmed, the dark-haired individual stood confidently, his determined eyes meeting the apathetic gaze of the menacing. The blonde man lay on the ground, his body battered and covered in blood, embodying the desperation of the moment. The blue skeleton, embodying boredom, spoke dismissively to the dark-haired man, who remained indifferent as he confidently walked away. The dark-haired man with a commanding presence questioned the group about the noise, to which the short-haired woman explained that Lu Ringa's failed sneak attack on Feng Zhao led to his instant defeat, surprising everyone given the common belief about necromancer's frailty. As the blonde-haired boy worriedly supported Feng Zhao, the group of young men helped guide him away, reflecting the urgency and concern of the moment. The blonde man, injured but defiant, shouted with anger and determination, vowing that they should just wait for what was to come. Under the calm, clear sky, a brightly lit building stood as a silent witness to the unfolding tension and impending challenges. In a secluded area, a dark-haired man, exuding determination, summoned the system with confidence as a ghostly figure ominously appeared behind him, asserting that no one should disturb him here. With a resolute expression, the dark-haired man held the glowing, swirling object as he prepared to embark on his journey into the undead realm, contemplating whether to begin this daunting experience. The dark-haired figure, embracing his role as a necromancer, channeled green magic with determination, pondering whether his journey into the undead realm would truly be as smooth as he hoped. With intense shadows casting across his resolute face, the dark-haired figure commanded the system to initiate the undead realm experience, aware of the perilous creatures and the risks entwined with rewards in this ominous venture. As the command was given, a glowing green frame manifested ominous demonic hands, suggesting that the system acknowledged his request and was preparing for the journey ahead. Standing resolute before the swirling energy of the mysterious portal, the dark-haired figure reflected on the 18 years he had waited for this system and resolved not to squander the opportunity to grow stronger. A translucent green screen shimmered into existence, presenting the dark-haired figure with a choice, warning that the undead realm experience carried unpredictable risks and asked if he wished to proceed. Determined and unwavering, the dark-haired man confirmed his readiness to begin the undead realm experience, fully aware of the unknown dangers it might entail. As the dark-haired figure stood in the glowing rune-covered circle, emitting a green aura, he felt a surge of surprise mingled with determination, fully embracing the ominous atmosphere surrounding his decision. As the blood-red sun rose over the desolate landscape, casting an eerie glow, the dark-haired figure's determination to embrace the unpredictable journey ahead only deepened. In the foreboding dawn, a crow perched menacingly on a tombstone amidst scattered skulls, echoing the dark-haired man's resolve as he ventured further into the ominous landscape of the undead realm. The desolate and fiery landscape, illuminated by a red moon in the sky, mirrored the foreboding journey that lay ahead in the ominous undead realm. Amidst the fiery landscape, a hooded figure crouched silently, embodying the ominous atmosphere that mirrored the dark-haired man's determined path through the undead realm. Amidst this unsettling backdrop, an imposing skeletal entity with glowing eyes stood menacingly, evoking the dark-haired man's thoughts about its resemblance to the skeleton he had summoned earlier, and pondering if he was truly experiencing the essence of the undead realm. The skeletal figure with glowing eyes activated its mysterious skill, leaving the dark-haired man to wonder if this innate ability referred to as skeletal armament would reveal deeper secrets about the essence of the undead realm. Intrigued, the skeletal figure assessed the ability just used by the clone, contemplating its connection to the mysterious powers within the undead realm. Determined to prepare for any threats, the cautious figure with the white skull-like mask decided to forge a weapon before facing the menacing shadowy creature in the fiery landscape. A ferocious wolf-like creature burst out from the shadows with terrifying speed. Its mouth was wide open, revealing rows of sharp fangs as it lunged directly toward the skeleton. Fang Zhou was caught completely off guard. He immediately leaped backward and narrowly avoided the wolf's claws. Looking at the beast, he realized that the undead realm was indeed filled with hidden dangers. Before he could fully recover, the two-headed wolf launched another fierce assault. Fanga tried to dodge, but his foot became tangled at the worst possible moment. Seeing the wolf rushing toward him, he remained calm and muttered that if that was the case, then he had another idea. In an instant, he swung his body and pulled the skeleton from the ground that had become tangled around his foot. He then kicked the skeleton's head, sending it flying straight toward the wolf's head. The beast simply shook its head and continued glaring at him with its crimson eyes. Fanga stared in disbelief as cold sweat ran down his skull. Seeing this, he realized that the kick had absolutely no effect at all. Bango struggled to keep up as the two-headed wolf continuously attacked from different directions. Every movement felt awkward, and he quickly realized that controlling a skeleton's body was much harder than he had imagined. The wolf kept circling and launching relentless assaults. He dodged as best as he could, but he knew things could not continue like this. While retreating, his eyes suddenly landed on a nearby pile of bones. A plan immediately formed in his mind. At that moment, blue energy surged around the scattered bones. The pile of bones instantly flew together and merged into a massive skeletal weapon. Without hesitation, Fanga swung it forward and shouted for the beast to die. The attack slammed directly into the wolf, sending a powerful impact through its body. However, the two-headed wolf was far tougher than expected. It snarled fiercely and pushed forward. Despite the hit, Fang Hao continued fighting at close range, circling the beast and striking from multiple directions. The battle grew increasingly intense as claws, fangs, and bone weapons collided again and again. Suddenly, back in the real world, Fang Hao realized something after being attacked by the wolf. The injuries suffered inside the undead realm were also transferred to reality. He concluded that this mysterious system was far more dangerous than he had originally imagined. However, he quickly shifted his attention back to the battle. Since one wolf head was already dead, there was no reason to let it go to waste. The skeleton raised a hand toward the corpse and issued a command. Dark energy surged forward and wrapped around the dead wolf head. At the same time, the skill skeletal armament activated once more. He grabbed the dead wolf head and transformed it into long skeletal chains. The chains shot through the air like living serpents and coiled around the wolf's body. The beast immediately struggled and roared furiously, trying to break free. Blood splattered as the chains tightened around it from every direction. The chains whipped through the battlefield repeatedly, slashing and piercing the wolf's body over and over. Each strike left fresh wounds across its fur and flesh. After defeating the two-headed wolf, Fang Zhou looked at its corpse and evaluated the battle. He admitted that skeletal armament was even more useful than he had expected. As a skill granted by the mysterious system, its versatility far exceeded his initial assumptions. Just as he was reflecting on the fight, a strange blue flame suddenly rose from the wolf's corpse. The eerie flame hovered above the dead beast, pulsing with an unusual energy. The moment he saw it, a powerful sensation surged through him, an overwhelming hunger. The feeling struck so suddenly that it caught him off guard. He could not understand why he desired the flame so badly. Then, as if responding to his instinct, a thought emerged deep within his consciousness. Eat it. Devour. Power. Evolve. The words echoed repeatedly in his mind. The hunger consumed his thoughts. Finally, he raised his hand and pulled the blue flame toward himself. Without hesitation, he opened his mouth and swallowed the mysterious soul-like fire in a single gulp. After swallowing the blue soul flame, Funjo felt a surge of energy flow through his body. A green system notification immediately appeared before him. The newly absorbed power was quickly converted into his attributes. His strength, constitution, agility, and spirit attributes all increased slightly. He concluded that this was likely one of the effects granted by skeletal armament. Just then, he received another notification telling him that his soul power had also increased slightly. Fang Hao stared at the new stat with curiosity and wondered what soul power could actually do. The system quickly provided an explanation. Soul power was converted from soul energy and had many different uses. It could be used to deduce and develop skills, increase one's potential, and even enhance equipment. In other words, the path forward was simple. As long as he continued hunting and gathering soul energy, he could keep growing stronger without stopping. After learning how the system worked, Funjo looked across the desolate, undead land and felt a surge of excitement. A realization flashed through his mind. He could grow infinitely. As long as he kept hunting and gathering soul energy, there seemed to be no limit to how strong he could become. While he was thinking, movement suddenly caught his attention. A ragged skeleton warrior approached from the distance. The system immediately displayed its information. It was a basic skeleton, the cannon fodder commonly summoned by necromancers. It was only an apprentice-level undead creature. Its body was fragile. It possessed no intelligence, and its greatest weakness was the soul fire burning inside its skull. Seeing that, Fang immediately became interested. He activated skeletal armament once more and successfully forged a piece of equipment, bone spear. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and struck. The enemy skeleton was blown away by the attack before it could even react. As the blue soul fire was absorbed, his agility and soul power increased slightly. Seeing this, Fanga's eyes glowed brighter. The increase confirmed his theory. Every undead creature he hunted could become nourishment for his growth. He continued his assault without slowing down. His spear pierced through another skeleton, shattering its bones. The moment its soul fire was devoured, the system rewarded him again. He started to feel his body becoming stronger with every kill. His path was becoming clearer and clearer. Every enemy he defeated was merely another stepping stone toward evolution. After countless battles, Feng Hao stood amid piles of broken bones. Blue soul fire flickered within his eyes as he examined his current status. His attributes had risen significantly. Strength 3, Agility 2, Constitution 2, Spirit 2, Soul Power 10. Yet instead of being satisfied, he shook his head. This level of power was still far from enough. He could become even stronger. As that thought echoed through his mind, the scene suddenly shifted to reality. At high school, Feng Zhou was standing quietly, still immersed in thoughts of becoming stronger and continuing his endless path of growth. Just as he was thinking, a familiar voice suddenly interrupted him. His classmate, Bia Shun, saw him standing in the empty hallway. She looked at him and asked what he was doing there. Startled, Fan Zhou snapped out of his thoughts and turned toward the source of the voice. His eyes widened slightly in surprise. Standing before him was Ba Xiaoan. After recognizing her, he asked in confusion why she was there. Bao Chen stared at him nervously. Her eyes soon fell on the blood stain on his hand, and she immediately became worried. She hesitated before speaking. Even if the profession he had awakened was not ideal, he should not hurt himself just to vent his frustration. Feng Zhao was stunned. He had no idea how she had arrived at such a conclusion. At that moment, he realized that Bisha Chun had completely misunderstood the situation. The injury on his hand had nothing to do with self-harm. Unable to explain the truth, Feng Zhao could only sigh inwardly. He thought that the next time he entered the undead realm, he would have to find a quieter place where no one could disturb him. Trying to calm her concerns, he casually told her that he was fine and that the wound was only a small scratch caused by carelessness. Bisha looked at him doubtfully and asked if that was really true. Feng Hao nodded and reassured her again. After a brief silence, he changed the subject. He reminded her that meditation class was about to begin and that they should hurry back to class. Bao Chen immediately agreed. The two of them then walked down the corridor together toward their classroom. As Feng Zhou and Ba Xiaochen walked through the corridor, Feng Zhou suddenly coughed. His body swayed slightly, causing Ba Xiaochen's expression to change immediately. She hurried to his side and grabbed his arm, telling him that he was obviously not fine. She insisted on taking him to the infirmary. Fenga quickly reassured her that he was all right. But inwardly, he finally understood what was happening. Entering the undead realm seemed to place a certain burden on his body. At that moment, a green notification screen appeared before him. It informed him that he had spent too much time in the undead realm today and warned him to pay attention to his physical condition. Seeing the message, Feng Zhou's eyes widened slightly. Then another discovery caught his attention. His own attributes had increased as well. His skills now included summon skeleton and a mysterious new ability called deducible skill. While Bai Xiaochan stood beside him, still worried and asking whether he was truly okay. Funha's attention remained fixed on the new skill. He stared at the words deducible skill and began to think. Could this ability allow him to do what only the most powerful awakened individuals could do? A bold idea suddenly appeared in his mind. Perhaps he could use this skill not only to learn abilities, but also to create entirely new ones. The possibility filled him with excitement. Feng Zhou clenched his fists, thinking that if his guess was correct, then his future potential might be far greater than he had ever imagined. He might one day create his own unique skills and walk a path unlike anyone else's. Sometime later, at Haiqing High School's teaching building, the students gathered inside a large lecture hall for their first meditation class. A woman with long red hair stepped onto the stage and introduced herself. Her name was Shunhong Yu, and she was the instructor responsible for teaching meditation. She was a silver lower rank fire mage. With a wave of her hand, glowing books appeared on the students' desks. Shenhong Yu explained that the book contained the basic meditation method corresponding to their professions. She instructed everyone to use meditation to display their professional abilities. She then explained that meditation could increase spirit power, which served as the foundation for using professional skills. However, she told the students not to be anxious if they failed at first. According to her, it was completely normal. She even boasted that despite being a genius, it had taken her half a month of training just to barely reach that stage. Fangzhou remained silent as he listened to her words. At that moment, a system notification suddenly appeared before his eyes, telling him that the system had detected a learnable skill, skeleton meditation method. It could be quickly deduced to the entry stage. Without hesitation, Fangzhou reached out and selected yes. The learning process immediately began. As soon as the learning process started, green streams of energy surged around Fangzhou. Strange symbols surrounded his body as the skeleton meditation method was rapidly absorbed into his mind. In an instant, Fangzhou's consciousness merged with a skeleton clone, and he successfully learned the skill skeleton meditation method. Fangzhou was surprised by how quickly he had mastered it. Just then another description appeared. Skeleton meditation method apprentice level entry stage. A basic meditation method for necromancers that slowly increases the spirit attribute by visualizing a skeleton. After reading the explanation, Fangzhou was not surprised at all. To ordinary people, visualizing a skeleton might be difficult, but for him, it was no different from looking at his own skeleton clone. Fangzhou quickly realized another advantage. As long as he did not enter the undead realm experience, the skeleton clone would continue meditating automatically. In other words, he could cultivate 24 hours a day without stopping. He immediately understood that this was one of the benefits granted by the system's innate necromancer holy body. Just then, another system notification appeared. Host spirit ability has increased. You may enter the undead realm experience again. Fangzhou narrowed his eyes. He knew that entering the undead realm consumed spirit power. Because of that, he could not afford to neglect the training of either his main body or his skeleton clone. Without hesitation, Fangzhou made his decision. He quickly entered the undead realm. After entering the undead realm once again, Fangzhou's skeleton clone immediately resumed hunting within the barren land of death. The clone charged across the battlefield and struck down undead creatures one after another with its bone weapon. Watching the gains accumulate, Fangzhou felt a surge of excitement. He realized that he could once again hunt to his heart's content and steadily grow stronger. Soon, a system notification appeared before him, telling him that a clone skill had reached proficiency. It can be used as skill material to deduce an unknown skill for the main body. Estimated cost, 10 points of soul power. Fangzhou's eyes narrowed in interest. He remembered the system mentioning skill deduction before. It seemed that the deduction process had to be performed inside the undead realm. Without wasting any time, he decided to test it. Immediately, green flames surged around the system interface. A mysterious symbol appeared as the system began analyzing the available materials. The deduction process continued for several moments while the progress bar steadily advanced. At last, the result appeared. Skill deduction successful. A brand new skill was born. Bone Javelin. The system displayed its description. Bone Javelin apprentice level proficient condenses a bone javelin and throws it at enemies. It deals both armor-piercing physical damage and death energy damage. Its quantity, power, and range depend on the user's spirit attribute and skill proficiency. Fangzhou looked at the newly acquired skill and immediately smiled. The bone javelin perfectly matched the weapon his skeleton clone had been using all along. After obtaining the bone javelin skill, Fangzhou discovered that it came with an entire derivative skill tree. At the top of the tree was bone javelin, and beneath it were several advanced branches, including bone shield, giant bone claw, and bone prison. Seeing this, Fangzhou was pleasantly surprised. He had not expected the skill to provide an entire evolution path. However, after examining it more closely, he realized that unlocking those advanced skills would require much more soul power. For now, all he could do was continue accumulating soul power through hunting. While thinking about his next steps, Fangzhou suddenly noticed something unusual. Not far away, several undead skeletons were wandering across the wasteland. The moment they sensed his presence, they appeared terrified and tried to flee. Fangzhou's eyes lit up. A smile spread across his skeletal face. Since suitable targets had appeared on their own, he could use them to test his newly acquired skill. Without hesitation, Fangzhou activated Bone Javelin. A gigantic bone spear condensed in the air, wrapped in blue death energy. The javelin shot forward like a bolt of lightning and slammed into the ground among the fleeing skeletons. The impact was devastating. The earth cracked apart as the undead creatures were instantly shattered into piles of broken bones. After witnessing the result, Fanga nodded in satisfaction. The power of Bone Javelin far exceeded ordinary apprentice-level skills such as Death Missile and Ray of Enfeeblement. Its destructive force was clearly on a completely different level. After testing Bone Javelin, Fang Hao noticed something unexpected. The rewards from defeating the weak skeletons had decreased significantly. When he checked his status, he realized that his attributes were not rising like before. Fang Hao quickly understood what was happening. The system was clearly preventing him from endlessly farming weak undead for easy growth. If he wanted larger rewards, he would have to venture deeper into the more dangerous regions of the undead realm. However, before doing that, there was still something important he needed to obtain. Bone Essence. Until he acquired enough Bone Essence, he would continue hunting and devouring these low-level undead to strengthen himself. Back in the real world, Fang Zhou sat quietly in the classroom while his consciousness remained focused on the undead realm. As he watched his strength steadily increase, a grin slowly appeared on his face. A faint chuckle escaped him. The sound immediately caught Shun Hong's attention. Curious, Teacher Shun Hongyu walked over and gently tapped his shoulder, calling out to him. Fang. Zhou snapped back to reality. Shun Hongyu frowned slightly and asked why everyone else was concentrating on meditation while he was sitting there giggling to himself. Fang Zhao awkwardly opened his mouth, unsure how to explain. Before he could answer, another student suddenly spoke up. The student confidently declared that he knew the reason. In his opinion, Fang Hao had simply failed to enter a meditative state. Another student questioned that conclusion, pointing out that rare professions were supposed to have superior meditation effects. A classmate immediately corrected him, explaining that it depended on the specific rare profession. He then added that very few people had ever awakened as necromancers. Because of that, the skeleton meditation method available to necromancers was rumored to be incomplete. As a result, it would not be surprising if Fanga found it difficult or even impossible to enter a meditative state. Hearing everyone discuss him as if he had failed, Fang Hao could only remain silent. Teacher Shin looked at Feng Zhao with a serious expression and told him that she understood meditation was difficult for his profession. However, she warned him not to give up on himself so easily. She then pointed out that because he was the only student not seriously trying, the entire class was having its time wasted. To make her point, she gestured toward Linnea. She praised him for his hard work, saying that in just a single class, he had already meditated enough to materialize the handle of a knife. Leah smiled modestly and thanked Teacher Shun for the compliment. Even so, he claimed that he had only comprehended about 1/3 of the meditation method so far. According to him, his cultivation speed was merely at the level of an average genius. Then he turned toward Fanga with a smug look and said that Fan Hao should now understand the gap between a necromancer and other professions. Hearing that, Fan Hao let out a faint chuckle. He calmly replied that such a speed was indeed very average. The entire classroom fell silent. Lai Renjia's eyes widened in disbelief. He could hardly believe what he had just heard. Recovering from the shock, he immediately pointed at Feng Zhao and angrily declared that Feng Zhao could not even enter a meditative state. He told him to look at his own situation before bragging. At that moment, Feng Hao released a terrifying aura that made the atmosphere turn cold and oppressive. Lai Renjia's expression instantly changed. The arrogance on his face disappeared as fear took its place. Instinctively, he stepped back. The overwhelming presence looming behind Fongo made it clear that he was not someone to be taken lightly. Teacher Shin quickly called out to Leah, telling him to focus his mind and calm down. Then she turned toward Fang Zhou with a displeased expression and asked what he thought he was doing. She reminded him that this was a meditation class meant for learning meditation, not a place for aggressive brawling. Any fighting could wait until combat class. Fang Zhou calmly rested a hand on the desk and explained that he had only wanted Li Renjia to step aside. A faint smile appeared on his face as he continued speaking. He said he simply wanted to show Teacher Shun his meditation progress. The classroom immediately became restless. A silver-haired girl stared at him in surprise and wondered if Feng Hao had actually succeeded in meditation. Even if he had, she thought he should have only completed around 1/10 of the entry stage at most. Meanwhile, many students looked toward Fanga with curiosity and doubt. Ignoring everyone's reactions, Fanho slowly activated the technique skeleton meditation method. In the next instant, Dark energy erupted from his body. Black streams of power surged upward like countless shadowy tendrils, filling the classroom with a chilling aura. Powerful waves of energy spread in every direction, causing the air itself to tremble. The students could only stare in shock as the dark currents continued to rise around Feng Zhao. Teacher Shin also stared at Feng Zhou in disbelief. She could hardly understand how it was possible. In the span of a single class, Feng Zhou had actually reached the entry stage of the skeleton meditation method. Feng Zhou stood calmly beneath the giant skeleton and casually thought that at this speed compared to an average genius, he should be at least 100 million times better. At that moment, Instructor Lu Hu suddenly stepped forward. After observing Feng Zhao's aura, he admitted that Feng Zhou's progress with the meditation method was quite impressive. Then, to everyone's surprise, he announced that there would be a test the next day. The announcement immediately caused an uproar throughout the classroom. Several students jumped to their feet in shock. Some wondered if they were already going to have combat class, while others complained that they had not even reached the entry stage of their own meditation methods yet. As the room buzzed with complaints, Lyrenian narrowed his eyes and looked toward Feng Zhou. A cold smile appeared on his face. He reminded Feng Zhou that combat class was completely different from meditation. In the field he excelled at, he intended to show everyone the difference between them. Inwardly mocking Feng Hao as nothing more than a weak chicken mage, Lin Jia looked forward to seeing how long Fenga could keep up his confident act once the real fighting began. Mastering meditation has boosted Feng Zhao's spirit power, significantly extending the time he can operate within the undead realm. His connection to the skeleton clone is now more stable, allowing him to navigate the wasteland with greater efficiency and focus. Refusing to slack off, he pushes himself to the limit, knowing every moment in this realm is a precious opportunity for growth. With his energy slowly depleting, he dives back into combat, determined to harvest more souls and solidify his strength for the upcoming test. Fongo goes on a violent rampage, tearing through endless ranks of low-level skeletons in the undead realm wasteland. Driven by a desperate hunger for power, he demands even more enemies to fuel his rapid, lethal evolution. His combat prowess grows with every strike, allowing him to decimate the spectral forces at an ever-increasing pace. Briefly catching his breath, he prepares to dive even deeper into the abyss to maximize his gains before his time runs out. With his spirit power nearly exhausted, Feng Zhao prepares to conclude his intense hunting session. His hard work is rewarded as the system announces a professional level increase and a massive strengthening of his skeleton clone. Without a moment's hesitation, he confirms the prompt to claim his hard-earned power. A surge of spectral energy engulfs the clone, finalizing its transformation into a far more powerful and imposing warrior. After concluding his intense training session, the scene shifts from the eerie undead realm back to the familiar grounds of the Haiying High School sports field. Despite his rapid growth, Feng Zhao is left reeling from severe mental exhaustion, struggling with the painful side effects of his depleted spirit power. Noticing his worn-out state, Bai Shirao Chan expresses genuine worry about his health, though he quickly dismisses her fears with a casual lie about overpracticing. Realizing the danger of his double life, Feng Zhao resolves to keep his connection to the system a secret, vowing to only enter the spectral realm when he is completely alone. Despite his earlier success, the bullies continue to ridicule Feng Zhao, dismissing the necromancer class as inherently weak and useless. Bai Shirao Chan confronts the group, demanding to know why they persist in targeting Feng Zhao when he has done nothing to provoke them. Feng Ha challenges his rival, Lu Rinja, who dismisses his previous defeat and claims to have surpassed his former self. Within a week, Lu Rinja brandishes a newly mastered professional skill, arrogantly boasting that he now possesses the power to finish Feng Zhao in one strike. Instructor Lu arrives just in time to break up the heated confrontation, putting a sudden stop to the brewing fight. He harshly scolds the students, reminding them that the skills they learn are meant for fighting ghosts, not for settling petty internal grudges. Turning to Feng Zhao, the instructor acknowledges his impressive meditation results, but emphasizes that he must work just as hard in the actual combat class. As the teacher walks away, Fongo realizes that Lu's strict attitude is actually a way of intentionally looking out for his future success. Instructor Lu calls the class to order on the sports field, signaling the beginning of the highly anticipated combat assessment. Aides wheel out heavy equipment as students watch with curiosity and a touch of nervousness about the trial ahead. The instructor unveils an apprentice-level test golem, a specialized training robot designed to push the students to their limits. He explains that this machine will be used to accurately measure both their offensive output and defensive capabilities in a controlled combat scenario. Instructor Lu sets the baseline, explaining that the golem mimics a low-level abyss demon with an attack and defense rating of 100. The first student tests their magical prowess with a fireball, hoping to reach the standard required for real combat. Despite the effort, the student scores a mere 48, highlighting the massive gap between classroom practice and actual demonic power. A physical attacker fares even worse, scoring a 41 with their strike and proving that most of the class is still far from ready. An archer's specialized strike only reaches a score of 50, emphasizing the brutal difficulty of meeting the instructor's expectations. As the common classes finish with disappointing results, Instructor Lu summons the special professions to finally take the stage. Common students lament their inability to reach the passing score of 60, wondering if the elite hidden classes can actually earn the promised rewards. Funhao prepares his turn, contemplating whether the golem will calculate the combined strength of both himself and his summoned skeleton. Lu Rinxiao mocks Feng Zhao's hesitant expression, claiming the necromancer's attack power is undoubtedly the lowest in the class. Eager to demonstrate the gap in their abilities, the bully charges forward and unleashes his phantom dagger skill against the golem. The machine registers a score of 80, an impressive result that highlights the raw power of his phantom assassin hidden profession. Lu Rinja basks in his success and continues to taunt Feng Zhao, though his peers quickly remind him that he isn't the only one with a rare class. Instructor Lu calls forward Yi Fan, the next highly touted student, to face the combat assessment. Classmates whisper in envy, noting his rare demon hunter profession and the special attention he receives from the school's top brass. Yin remains composed as he manifests a large green glowing blade, displaying the lethal energy of his hidden class. With his weapon fully materialized, he prepares to launch a devastating blow and showcase the power of a top-tier awakened. Yin begins his test with a vengeance strike, but a disappointing score of 65 leaves the onlookers unimpressed. Refusing to settle for a mediocre result, he reveals his true focus, signaling that his attack sequence is far from over. He unleashes a rapid vengeance combo, demonstrating the unique multi-hit scaling inherent to the demon hunter profession. The final score skyrockets to a staggering 169, crushing previous records and solidifying his status as a top-tier talent. Yin concludes his evaluation, setting a new bar for the class with a cumulative attack score of 100. Watching closely, Feng Hao realizes the golem tolls total damage over multiple hits rather than measuring a single strike. Applying this logic to his own summons, he concludes that the machine's durability threshold is well within his reach. After achieving a score of 100, Yin stood confidently on the testing field, convinced that no one in the class could surpass him. Nearby Shirao Chan complained that Yan had only reached that score by stacking multiple attacks together. She regretted not attacking a few more times herself. Lu Rinja immediately mocked her, pointing out that an assassin-type profession would never gain a combo skill like that. Before their argument could continue, Lu called by Shirao Chan forward for her test. She nervously stepped onto the field and reminded herself that as the holder of a hidden profession, she could not afford to embarrass herself. Gathering wind energy around her body, she rushed forward and struck the test golem. The machine registered a score of 31. Lu, who announced her attack capability as 31, by Shirao Chan, could only sigh, concluding that support professions simply lacked defensive power. Lu Rinja burst into laughter and ridiculed the result. He claimed that if he had awakened as an assassin, his score would easily have exceeded 80. The testing continued. Next, Gujicho stepped forward and used Chain Wind Energy Missile, earning an attack score of 72. After him, Zhou Yuan activated Shield Armor Charge and achieved a score of 69. Chunyong then used Giant Hammer Smash and registered a score of 84. As the results accumulated, students discussed the impressive performances. Even so, no one had managed to surpass Yain's score of 100 or destroy the golem. Someone then pointed out that one hidden profession had not yet taken the test. That person was Feng Zhao, the necromancer. The moment his name came up, Wan Xiao laughed and dismissed the idea that Feng Zhao could accomplish anything. He doubted Feng Zhao would even reach 10 attack points and questioned whether his skeletons could stand properly at all. Feng Zhao calmly asked whether Lu Rina was really so certain that he could not win the 20 contribution point. Confident as ever, Lu Rina declared that if Fanga managed to destroy the golem, he would eat it on the spot. Feng Zhao simply smiled and reminded him to remember those words. He then walked to the center of the field and asked everyone to step back. Lu Rinja assumed Fongo was worried about being laughed at for a low score, but Fongo explained that the skill he was about to use required a lot of space. Dark clouds gathered overhead as green magical chains spread around him. Moments later, 10 skeletons rose from the ground. The sight stunned everyone present. Students immediately questioned how an apprentice-level necromancer could summon 10 skeletons when newly awakened necromancers were usually limited to only 2. Some even wondered whether Feng Zhao had already advanced to the Black Iron rank. Even Instructor Lu, who found it hard to believe. He recalled that Sun Yan, widely regarded as the most talented necromancer in history, had only been able to summon 5 skeletons when she first awakened. The comparison made him question whether Feng Zhao's talent might be even greater. Watching the reaction, Feng Zhao quietly noted that he had already held back. Otherwise, the attention he attracted would have been even more overwhelming. He then gave a single command for the skeletons to attack. The undead army immediately charged forward. Their speed shocked Lu Rina, and they quickly surrounded the test golem with a barrage of attack. The score on the display rapidly climbed from 30 to 45 and then to 60 before finally stopping at 65. Seeing the result, Lu Rinja relaxed and laughed. He argued that the attack value was nothing special. Other students agreed that while 65 was respectable for a normal warrior, it seemed underwhelming for a summoner controlling so many skeletons. Lu Rinja mocked the result further, pointing out that each skeleton had contributed less than 10 points on average. Feng Zhao calmly told him not to rush to conclusions because the test had only just begun. When Lu Nia questioned him again, Feng Zhao snapped his fingers. Green energy burst outward. Since 10 skeletons were not enough, he decided to summon 20. A second wave of skeletons emerged from the ground, creating an army of 20 undead warriors. The entire field erupted in shock. By Shirao Chan watched excitedly and cheered for Feng Hao, saying she had known he could do it. The skeleton horde resumed its assault. The score quickly climbed to 81, then 97, and soon surpassed 108. Under the relentless attacks, one of the golem's arms was completely destroyed. A massive explosion followed. When the smoke finally began to clear, the golem's head flew into the air while its damaged display crashed to the ground. The screen showed a final score of 999. The students were stunned before breaking into loud disbelief. Fongo had pushed the golem beyond its limits and completely destroyed it. Meanwhile, Lu Rinja stared at the wreckage in horror. Fongo calmly walked over to the shattered machine and placed a hand on its severed head. He reminded Lu Rinja of his promise and informed him that he could start eating the golem now. Lu Rinja could barely respond. Feng Zhao then said that he did not actually have to eat it if he did not want to. However, he warned Lu Rinja to stay out of his sight from now on. Terrified, Lu Rinja immediately ran away while swearing that he would settle the score another time. Afterward, Bao Chan rushed over and excitedly asked Feng Zhao how he had become so strong. She even begged him to teach her. Feng Zhao awkwardly replied that he had only been doing normal meditation training. Instructor Lu, who soon approached as well. He praised Feng Zhao's performance and promised to fight for a place for him on the school's specially cultivated seed list. The scene then shifted to the principal's office. The white-haired principal sat behind his desk reviewing a report on the latest awakening result. Out of 10,000 new students, 13 had successfully awakened, rate of roughly 91%. He reviewed a list of 85 rare professionals selected for the seed program, including Xiao Yuan by Shirao Chan, Guji Cho, and Yan. The principal considered adding all 85 directly to the school's list of 100 seed candidate. However, when he reached Feng Zhao's profile, he paused. After looking over the information on the necromancer, the principal coldly concluded that the profession had no future and decided that Fongo should be excluded from the seed. In the principal's office, the principal was seated at his desk when he instructed someone to come in. Instructor Lu entered quickly with several papers in hand. The principal asked why he was not in combat class and how he had time to report something. Instructor Lu responded that he had an urgent matter to report. The principal looked over the document and asked why he was in such a hurry. He then immediately located the relevant file. Instructor Lu presented Feng Zhao's file and identified Feng Zhao as a necromancer. He strongly recommended that Feng Zhao be added to the school's seed list. The principal acknowledged that the necromancer profession had strong potential, but stated that in practice, it was extremely difficult to fully develop. Instructor Lu countered by pointing out that Major Swan was also a necromancer and had combat power comparable to other mages. The principal responded that Suyin only appeared successful because she had been fully nurtured by him, her former mentor, and questioned what qualifications Feng Zhao could possibly have. He then reminded Instructor Lu that Feng Ha's parents had once been comrades in arms and were recognized as Federation heroes, but stressed that the seed list was extremely important and came with both resources and responsibility. Instructor Lu insisted on his recommendation and submitted reports from Feng's meditation and combat classes. The principal reacted with surprise after reading them, noting that Feng Zhao had learned the skeleton meditation method in his very first meditation class and could summon over 20 skeletons in actual combat. Instructor Lu argued that Feng Zhao's talent could allow him to make history for necromancers. The principal stopped the discussion and decided to evaluate Feng Zhao's results after the simulated battlefield was opened. As he examined the file more closely, the principal expressed interest in seeing what Feng Zhao was capable of. Outside, Feng Zhao walked together with Biao Chan. Biao Chan asked how he had managed to achieve such results, noting that summoning so many skeletons in the first combat class was unusual. Feng Hao replied that it was simply a matter of summoning a few more and that it was not a big deal. Bai Xiaoan accused him of being overly humble to the point of arrogance, but Fongo repeated that he did not think it was impressive. Internally, he reflected that he could not reveal that his current strength was only a fraction of what he could actually do. He smirked quietly as Ian called out to him and asked him to wait. Ian confidently declared that he had never been weaker than anyone and that among everyone in Class 1, only Feng Zhao was worthy of being his opponent. Bai Shirao-chan and Feng Zhao both fell silent at the statement. Feng Zhao declined the challenge and started walking away, saying he had no interest in dealing with him. Bai Shirao-chan found his behavior rather strange. Effin stopped him and clarified that it was not a simple challenge, but a request for him to become a sparring partner. Ian recalled that after awakening the rare demon hunter profession, he had joined a demon hunter research group where a sparring partner of equal strength was required for further study. Feng Zhao questioned why he should participate in Yin's research. Effin offered 10 contribution points, explaining that it covered 2 weeks of sparring services along with room and board. Fongo immediately agreed and shook hands to confirm the deal. Yin was satisfied, remarking that Feng Zhao truly lived up to being the rival he had chosen, then expressed surprise that he had agreed so quickly. Feng Zhao then told him to follow without delay. As they walked by, Shirao Chan asked Feng Zhao if he had really accepted such a strange person so easily. Feng Zhao replied that 10 contribution points was quite a significant amount. Feng Zhao privately reflected that those at a certain place likely needed resources like these. As Biao Chan and Feng Zhao walked together, Bao Chan wondered aloud if Yin was a second-generation rich kid, since he seemed unusually generous. Feng Zhao dismissed the idea and explained that Yan was not wealthy at all and that the contribution points had been advanced by the Research Association. Bai Shirao Chan was surprised and asked if the Research Association was really that generous. Feng Zhao clarified that it was only in advance and that Yin would eventually have to repay it. He further commented that given Yan's extravagant spending habits, he would likely end up in debt for about 20 years after graduation. Bai Shirao-chan reacted with surprise at this explanation. At that moment, Yin called for them to hurry and led them into a building. Inside, Yan introduced the laboratory and asked for their opinion. Fang Zhao noted that it was a highly well-equipped facility and remarked that the treatment for rare professionals was indeed extraordinary. A man then introduced himself as Chunqing Shan, a silver-level Gale Ranger and the person in charge of the Demon Hunter Research Association. Fang Zhao and Bai Shirao Chan greeted him, and Chunqing Shan acknowledged them. Fang Zhao observed that although Chunqing Shan worked in logistics research, he still carried the aura of someone who had experienced frontline battles. As they walked through the lab, Chunqing Shan explained that recently in the Abyss Mystic Realm, a senior demon hunter had achieved a legendary crown and successfully slain an Abyss Lord, demonstrating immense combat power. He then stated that after Yayan awakened his demon hunter profession, the Hang Military Academy placed great importance on him and established the research group to fully develop his potential. Chunqing Shan also mentioned that he had reviewed Fang Zhao's files, and if Fanga was interested, they could even establish a separate research association for him. Fang Zhao declined the offer. Internally, he thought he did not want to end up spending 20 years repaying debt. After graduation, Chunqing Shan accepted his refusal and decided to proceed directly with the actual combat research. As Funha and Yin headed downstairs toward the training area, Chunqing Shan explained that strict safety measures had already been put in place. He assured them that they could focus entirely on the battle without worrying about their lives being in danger. Fang Zhao considered Yanni's strengths, noting his speed and burst damage and how they would likely counter his skeleton summoning abilities. System displays his skill tree as Fang Zhao decided it was time to use skill deduction to further increase his combat power. He began upgrading his abilities. Summon Skeleton advanced, Bone Javelin reached level 2, and Bone Shield reached level 1. While Yin removed his jacket in preparation for the match, Fang Zhao suddenly remembered that he had recently mastered the Bladed Bow's weapon mastery skill. Ei then stepped forward with his bow and confidently claimed that even if Fanga summoned 20 skeletons, he still would not be able to defeat him. Fango merely smiled as he selected and equipped the apprentice robe, suggesting that things might turn out differently. As green energy surrounded him, he reflected that after investing points into his skills and preparing his equipment, the battle would no longer be so predictable. The system displayed his updated skill information, showing that Summon Skeleton had been grasped, Bone Javelin had reached the mastered level, and Bone Shield had become proficient. System notifications appeared before him. The Apprentice Staff, a gray inferior grade weapon produced through mass production, slightly increased the effectiveness of spells. The Apprentice Robe, also a gray inferior grade item, slightly reduced the damage he would receive. Yifan and our hero stood face to face as both of them activated their skills at the same time, smiling confidently. Yifan looked at him and said, "As expected of my rival, this confidence is indeed impressive. However, the enhancements the research group gave me are far beyond what you can imagine." The moment he finished speaking, a green aura burst out around his body, and in the very next second, he disappeared from his spot and closed the distance, appearing right in front of our hero to launch an attack. While the battle had only just begun, Professor Chun and the other researchers quietly started discussing the outcome. One of them asked, "Who do you guess will win?" Another researcher answered without any hesitation, "Definitely Yifan. You've interacted with him so many times this week. His combat instincts are the most terrifying I've ever seen." While they were still talking, Instructor Lu suddenly arrived from behind and calmly said, "Making a conclusion so early, you researchers are too hasty." Seeing him there, Professor Chin looked genuinely surprised before smiling. "Old Lu, why are you here?" Folding his arms across his chest, Instructor Lu replied while looking toward the battlefield, "Two outstanding students from my class are having a match. As their teacher, of course I have to observe." Hearing that, Professor Chin adjusted his glasses with a smile and asked, "What? Teacher Lu actually thinks Fang Zhu can defeat Yifan?" Without the slightest hesitation, Instructor Lu answered, "Exactly." As he spoke, he handed Professor Chen Fang Zhu's detailed report. Professor Chen immediately started reading through it before saying, "Fang Zhu can indeed summon many skeletons, but that doesn't change the fact that he's a mage with a fragile body. Moreover, Yifan comprehended an extremely powerful displacement skill yesterday, became slightly surprised. At that very moment, Yifan's attack finally reached our hero. Fang Yu barely managed to dodge it, retreating several steps while thinking that Yifan's close combat strength was incredibly high. If he wanted to win, he had to keep as much distance between them as possible. However, before our hero could create enough space, Yifan immediately activated his demon hunting arrow skill and launched another attack while shouting, "Don't think you are safe just by keeping your distance." Seeing the attack racing toward him, our hero instantly entered a fighting stance and began summoning skeleton after skeleton. Unfortunately, none of the skeletons could withstand Yifan's attacks. Every single one was destroyed almost the instant it appeared. As he continued attacking, watching his summons disappear one after another, our hero immediately realized the problem. His summoning rhythm had been interrupted. Just then, another devastating attack barely missed him. After narrowly dodging it, he couldn't help but think how close that had been. Without wasting another second, Feng Yu started summoning skeletons again. But every time a skeleton appeared, it was instantly destroyed by Yifan's attacks before it could even survive for a full second. Watching such an intense battle unfold before them, Professor Chen couldn't help but praise them. The younger generation is truly formidable. With Feng Yu's performance today, even if he loses to Yifan, I will approve his selection for the seed list. Hearing that, Instructor Lu smiled faintly and said, "Old Chun, don't celebrate too early." Even as he spoke, he couldn't help but think that Feng Yu was far too calm and experienced. He simply refused to believe that the boy didn't have any hidden trump cards left. Meanwhile, the battle continued without stopping. Our hero kept summoning skeletons one after another, while Yifan effortlessly destroyed them all with a single strike each time. Watching his entire army disappear so easily, sweat gradually became visible across Feng Yu's face. After carefully observing the situation, he finally admitted to himself that he couldn't hold back any longer. The next moment, he raised both of his hands high into the air and unleashed his full power, summoning skeletons at an unbelievable speed. Seeing so many skeletons appearing continuously, Professor Chun and every researcher present widened their eyes in complete disbelief. 30 skeletons? Professor Chen shouted in shock. The researcher standing beside him immediately added, "This kid only awakened a few days ago. How did he upgrade his skill this much?" Even Yifan couldn't hide his surprise after witnessing Feng Yu's ability. Instead of panicking, he smiled excitedly and said, "Not bad. Only with this ability are you worthy of being my rival." Hearing those words, our hero quietly clenched his fists. Even though Yifan was surrounded by dozens of skeletons, he remained unbelievably calm. That alone convinced Feng Yu that Yifan was definitely hiding another backup plan. Before he could think any further, Yifan once again began cutting down the skeletons one after another. But this time, every skeleton that fell was instantly replaced by another one summoned by Feng Yu. Watching this endless cycle continue, Yifan silently judged that the distance between them was finally enough. Without slowing down, he continued destroying skeleton after skeleton. Seeing Yifan getting closer and closer to victory, Professor Chen couldn't contain his excitement anymore. It's over. A mage fighting in close quarters could never withstand Yifan's attacks. Instructor Lu, however, looked far more surprised than anyone else. At that exact moment, as Yifan stepped within striking distance of Feng Yu, our hero suddenly smiled. "You took the bait." The instant those words left his mouth, Yifan rushed in for the finishing blow. But just as his attack was about to land, Feng Yu activated his bone shield skill. The attack was completely blocked, and the force released by the shield was so overwhelming that it blasted Yifan backward, sending him flying through the air. While being thrown away, Yifan looked completely stunned and shouted, "What skill is this?" Seeing that ability, even Instructor Lu couldn't hide his shock anymore. "This is the Necromancer's new skill." The moment he said that, Professor Chun was equally stunned and exclaimed, "He actually comprehended a new skill on his own? That's impossible." Meanwhile, Feng Yu calmly looked at Yifan and said, "Sorry, you're stronger than I imagined, so I had to use some tactics." Hearing those words, Yifan was left speechless. Professor Chen also stared at the battlefield in complete disbelief before he could even finish speaking. Before Professor Chen could continue, Instructor Lu immediately interrupted him and said with a helpless smile, "This kid, his tactics are really dirty." Professor Chen finally understood what had happened and exclaimed. He actually used an optical camouflage cloth to disguise himself among the skeletons. Surrounded by countless identical skeletons, Yi Fan couldn't identify Feng Zhu's real body, no matter how hard he looked. Grinding his teeth in frustration, he shouted, "Damn it! I can't find where Feng Zhu's real body is at all. Feng Zhu, come out." After shouting those words, he resumed attacking the skeletons one after another. However, as he fought, he quickly realized that if this continued, he would eventually be worn down to death. I can only use that move. The instant he made that decision, Yi Fan activated another skill. A terrifying burst of power erupted around him, causing every skeleton nearby to collapse one after another without him even touching them. Witnessing that scene, Instructor Lu's eyes widened in disbelief. How is this possible? He actually learned that skill at this level. Professor Chen immediately nodded and explained, "That's right. Although its cooldown time is very long, it possesses extremely high burst damage and incredible disengagement capabilities." At the same time, Feng Zhu quietly disappeared among the collapsing skeletons. The instant Yi Fan noticed the movement, his eyes lit up. That's the one. Without giving Feng Zhu another chance to escape, Yi Fan immediately activated his skill again and charged forward at full speed while shouting, "Feng Zhu, take my attack." Shouting at the top of his lungs, Yin charged straight toward our hero at incredible speed. Countless skeletons stood between them, and believing that one of them had to be Feng Zhu in disguise, Effin unleashed a devastating strike without hesitation. The force of the attack was so overwhelming that every skeleton in the surrounding area was instantly obliterated, and a massive explosion echoed throughout the battlefield. As the dust slowly began to settle, Effin stood there calmly with complete confidence and declared, "Your strength is great, but I, Effin, also have my pride and cannot lose." Believing the battle was already over, he turned around and shouted, "Hurry and call the medical staff over. I don't want to cause any casualties." However, the moment he looked at Professor Chen, Instructor Lu, and Ba Zhen, he immediately noticed that something was wrong. None of them looked like people who had just witnessed a victory. Their strange expressions left him completely confused. In the next instant, a terrifying thought crossed his mind. These weren't the expressions someone would give to the winner. Effin immediately looked down at the skeleton lying on the ground before him, and his eyes widened in disbelief. This isn't Feng Zhu. At that very moment, everything suddenly clicked together in his mind. Reverse disguise plus double disguise. It wasn't that he disguised himself as a skeleton. He made the skeleton disguise itself as him while he disguised himself as another skeleton. Before Ian could fully process what had happened, the skeleton lying on the ground suddenly grabbed hold of his leg. The unexpected move shocked him completely. At that exact moment, the real Feng Zhu calmly stepped out from the crowd of skeletons behind him in his true form. Pointing his weapon directly at Ian, he smiled and said, "Yeah, thank you for letting me win." The instant Yan heard Feng Zhu's voice behind him, he quickly turned around. His expression completely changed as he stared at our hero in disbelief. Realizing there was no way to turn the situation around anymore, he slowly let go of his weapon and admitted, "I admit defeat. Feng Hu wins." Even while accepting his loss, Effin couldn't help but think that the skill he had used just now had consumed far too much of his strength. He had exhausted everything and no longer had the energy to continue fighting. His body began to lose balance, and he was just about to collapse onto the ground when one of Feng Zhu's skeletons quickly caught him before he could fall. Seeing that unexpected kindness from the very person who had defeated him, Yin smiled and quietly thanked him. Hearing that, Feng Zhu smiled back and jokingly replied, "Don't mind it. Just consider this my sympathy for the loser." While our hero was saying that, his skeletons began carrying Yin away from the battlefield. But the moment Yin heard those words, he immediately shouted back while still lying down, "Bastard! Failure is merely the fuel for me to become stronger. Just you wait. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river." Hearing Yin's passionate declaration, Feng Zhu laughed helplessly and said, "I was just joking. No need to get so excited, right?" Just then, Professor Chen walked over and said, "Although I am reluctant to admit it, student Feng Zhu, your combat power far exceeds my expectations. With such proficient methods, you will definitely become a tactical master in the future. After hearing that compliment, Fangzhu scratched his head and smiled awkwardly. Why do I feel like you're not actually praising me? At that moment, Instructor Lu stepped forward and asked, Fanggu, that shield spell you released just now? Is it a new skill you comprehended yourself? Smiling proudly, Fanggu nodded. Yes, Teacher Lu. While practicing Summon Skeleton, I gained some insights and comprehended 2 new skills. I named them Bone Javelin and Bone Shield. The moment they heard that, both Professor Chun and Instructor Lu froze in complete shock. Instructor Lu immediately patted Fang Zhu on the shoulder and laughed. Good boy, you really know how to surprise us. Feeling another heavy pat on his shoulder, Fanggu smiled helplessly. Teacher, please be gentle. Still looking excited, Instructor Lu turned toward Professor Chun and said, Brother King, you happen to have professional equipment here. Why don't we test Fang Zhu's new skills? Professor Chen nodded without hesitation. No problem. I'll go arrange it. However, Fanggu quickly stopped them and said, Teacher, my spirit power has already bottomed out. I'm afraid I can't test these 2 new skills right now. Instructor Lu simply smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. You don't need to worry about such a small matter at all. The moment he finished speaking, someone immediately brought over a spirit power recovery potion. Looking at the bottle, Fanggu couldn't help but joke. Wait, are you pouring draft beer here? Instructor Lu immediately laughed and replied, Just chug it straight from the bottle. Hearing that, Fang Zhu didn't hesitate any longer. He grabbed the potion and drank it in one go, thinking to himself that this was the first time he had ever seen someone treat recovery potions like ordinary drinking water. It actually felt surprisingly refreshing. While he was finishing the potion, Professor Chun returned with a testing machine. Seeing everything was ready, Instructor Lu looked toward Fang Zhu and said, Get ready. We'll begin the test. Our hero nodded confidently. Okay. As soon as he answered, Instructor Lu continued explaining. Just like during combat class, use your skill to attack it. Hearing the instructions, Fanggu entered a fighting stance before activating his bone flying spear skill. Without holding back, he launched a powerful attack directly at the testing machine. The instant the attack landed, Instructor Lu looked at the results and announced, Attack ability 85. Seeing such an astonishing number, the people nearby immediately started discussing it among themselves. What an incredibly high attack ability for a newly awakened student. That's exceptionally outstanding. Listening to everyone's reactions, Professor Chin added with admiration. The key point is that this is a self-created skill. While everyone was still talking, Instructor Lu looked back at Fanggu. Get ready. Next, we'll test your skill's defensive ability. As soon as he finished speaking, the testing machine rapidly charged toward Fangzhu. Without panicking, our hero immediately activated Bone Shield and completely blocked the incoming attack. A moment later, another result appeared. Defense ability 80. Seeing those numbers, Instructor Lu smiled with satisfaction. Your attack is comparable to a Storm Mage, and your defense is comparable to an Earth Knight. After saying that, he walked over and happily patted Fang Zhu's shoulder once again. Fanghu, you were simply born to be a necromancer. Feeling yet another shoulder pat, Fanggu couldn't help but complain with a helpless smile. Teacher, can you please stop patting me? At that moment, Professor Chin adjusted his glasses and said, Student Fang Zhu, the skills you've comprehended are truly outstanding. I suggest you register them in the skill repository. Hearing those words, Fang Zhu was visibly surprised. The skill repository. As he thought about it, he remembered that the so-called skill repository was a massive skill collection center established by the Federation where anyone could exchange contribution points for powerful skills. Seeing Fang Zhu hesitate, Professor Chin smiled and explained, Our research institute has a branch of the Federation skill repository. You can use it anytime. Hearing that, Fang Zhu smiled gratefully. They'll have to trouble you then. The scene shifted once again, and soon our hero arrived at the location Professor Chun had mentioned together with Instructor Lu. Instructor Lu explained, After uploading your skills, you can immediately use the contribution points you receive to exchange for any skills you need. Hearing that, Fang Zhu nodded respectfully. I understand. Thank you, Teacher Lu. After saying that, he pushed open the massive gate and slowly walked inside. Isn't this supposed to be a skill library? Why is it completely dark? as expected of the Federation skill repository. After walking a little farther, Fangzhu finally reached the library itself. Countless books filled enormous bookshelves stretching in every direction. While he was looking around, he suddenly noticed a glowing crystal beside him. The moment he placed his hand on it, notifications immediately began appearing across his screen, one after another. After reading them, Fangzhu smiled excitedly. So, there's continuous profit as well. It wasn't easy getting into the skill repository. I can't just exchange for a few skills and leave. With that thought in mind, he immediately pulled a book off one of the shelves, opened it, and smiled confidently. Perfect. I'll use these skills as the blueprint to complete even more skill deductions. Inside the skill repository, our hero began upgrading his skills when a notification suddenly appeared before him. It read, "Upgradable skill detected, skeleton meditation method. Consume soul power to upgrade." As soon as he read it, he pressed yes, and within seconds, a dark green aura started swirling around his entire body. Feeling the terrifying energy surrounding him, he couldn't help but think, what a strong aura of death. Only a few seconds later, a majestic skeleton king appeared in front of him. Its glowing eyes shone brightly while one hand rested over its mouth, and our hero stood silently before it. At that very moment, another notification appeared on his screen saying, "Skeleton meditation method improved successfully." A few seconds later, the Skeleton King extended a book toward him, and as he accepted it, he asked in surprise, "This is for me?" The moment he touched the book, it suddenly opened by itself. Strange symbols written in an unknown language began revolving around his body, creating an overwhelming mystical scene. Holding the book in one hand with his head lowered, he stood motionless while the Skeleton King placed a hand on his shoulder from behind. Moments later, another notification appeared before him. It read, "Skeleton Monarch Meditation Method." The modified Skeleton Monarch Meditation Method increases meditation speed by 100% compared to the original, and can also strengthen all undead-type skills. After reading the notification, our hero's face lit up with excitement as he thought, not only does it increase my upgrade speed, but it also increases my skill intensity. This time, the soul power really wasn't wasted. He continued thinking, but no matter how strong a skill is, it still requires the corresponding spirit power to cast. During my previous battle with Ifan, my spirit power was almost completely exhausted. Luckily, I still have plenty of contribution points, so I can exchange them for a skill that increases spirit power. He immediately walked toward another bookshelf, picked up another book, and confidently said, "I choose you, presence of mind." The instant he made his choice, another notification appeared. Fang Xiu spent 20 contribution points and successfully exchanged for the skill. Smiling, he opened the book and carefully began reading its contents. The description explained, "This skill passively increases a spellcaster's spirit power recovery speed, and active use can additionally restore a certain amount of spirit power." The only drawback of presence of mind is that its learning difficulty is extremely high. After reading it, our hero smiled confidently and said, "But that's not an obstacle for me at all." Just then, another notification appeared before him. Learnable skill material detected. Consume 10 points of soul power to quickly reach the entry stage. Without even thinking twice, our hero immediately selected yes. The moment he confirmed it, dazzling light burst out of the book and started revolving around his body. A few seconds later, another notification appeared on the screen saying, "Skill presence of mind entry stage successful." After the entire process was complete, our hero smiled as he clenched his fist and felt the changes within his body. Excited by the results, he thought, "Very nice. The spirit power recovery speed has improved noticeably. If I had to face Ifan again now, I reckon I could simply drown him beneath a sea of skeletons." Looking around the shelves, he continued, "Vine Entanglement, Swamp Spell, Earth Wall Spell, Spider Web Spell, Ray of Enfeeblement. I should exchange these skills first and use them as references for upgrading my own skills later." Thinking that, he immediately gathered 4 or 5 more skill books together. At that very moment, another notification appeared before him. Fang Xiu spent 60 contribution points and successfully exchanged for the skills. After reading it, he nodded to himself and thought, "However, just having skills isn't enough. They also need to be paired with equipment of corresponding strength. An F-grade lower apprentice can only use gray-white grade equipment. As soon as he finished thinking that, another notification appeared. Fang Xiu spent 40 contribution points and successfully exchanged for the equipment. In the very next moment, his clothes instantly transformed into an entirely new set of equipment. Several notifications appeared one after another, and after reading all of them, our hero smiled with satisfaction and said, "The harvest this time is definitely not small. The Federation's skill repository truly is extraordinary." Just then, one of his skeleton clones appeared in front of him. Looking at it for a few moments, he suddenly remembered something important and said, "I almost forgot. The skeleton clone also needs corresponding skills." Without wasting another second, he began picking up more books one after another while reading their titles aloud. Weapon Mastery, Block, and Battle Cry. These 3 skills are all must-learns for the skeleton clone. The moment he finished choosing them, another notification appeared before him. Fang Xiu spent 30 contribution points and successfully exchanged for the skills. Looking at one of the remaining books, he couldn't help but smile bitterly as he thought, "Although the skill repository is amazing, it really isn't friendly to my contribution points. I wonder if I'll ever find another sparring partner that's this profitable." Just then, the scene shifted, and we saw our hero arriving at the Demon Hunter Research Association. The moment Teacher Lu noticed him, he smiled and asked, "How is it? Have you learned any new skills?" Hearing the question, our hero smiled back and confidently replied, "Yeah, the harvest this time was huge." Before he could say anything else, Yifan suddenly stepped forward with an angry expression and shouted, "Fang Zhu, I refuse to accept this. Drink the potion. I didn't understand your tactics last time, but this time I'll definitely defeat you as quickly as possible." Hearing Yifan's challenge, our hero simply smiled and calmly replied, "Are you sure you want to challenge me right now? I just upgraded my skills." Yifan stared straight at him without the slightest hesitation and declared, "I, Yifan, am unwilling to remain beneath others my whole life. This time, I'll use all my strength to defeat you." Hearing those determined words, our hero smiled mischievously and replied, "Fine, but this counts as extra practice, so you'll have to give me extra contribution points." Watching the two of them negotiate before their rematch, Professor Chin adjusted his glasses and smiled. As long as he agrees, either way, he'll be the one who has to pay it back later. Hearing that, our hero casually tossed the potion bottle toward Yifan and said with complete confidence, "Then bring it on. I'll return the potion to you. You might need it later." Yifan caught the potion bottle and immediately activated his skill. Pointing his weapon straight at Fang Zhu, he shouted, "You, Fang Zhu." The very next second, he burst forward with a powerful attack, determined to finish the battle before Fang Zhu could react. However, our hero didn't move an inch. He simply stood there with a calm expression, making everyone wonder what he was planning. Watching Yifan unleash his ultimate move right from the start, Bai Xiaoqin's eyes widened in surprise as she exclaimed, "He used his ultimate move right off the bat." Hearing her, Teacher Lu nodded seriously and said, "Yifan's combat intuition is indeed pretty good. A quick battle is his only way to win. I wonder how Fang Zhu, who just obtained new skills, will respond." Everyone immediately shifted their attention toward Fang Zhu, waiting to see his next move. As Yifan's attack rapidly closed in, Fang Zhu finally activated his skill. Huge magical circle instantly appeared beneath his feet, and one skeleton after another slowly began climbing out of it. Seeing the familiar scene, Bai Ziwaiwen looked confused and asked, "Is it still just summon skeleton?" Teacher Lu immediately shook his head and calmly replied, "No." Only a few seconds later, the number of skeletons increased explosively. Thousands of skeletons continuously poured out of the magic circle, filling the battlefield in every direction. A deafening explosion echoed throughout the area, and once the dust slowly settled, Teacher Lu stared ahead in complete disbelief before saying, "The power is even greater than before." Standing beside him, Professor Chun was equally shocked and exclaimed, "That kid Yifan actually comprehended and upgraded his skill during the previous battle." Meanwhile, Fang Zhu looked at Yifan with a calm smile and confidently said, "Not bad. The power of that move is quite a bit stronger than before, but it's a pity. My skills have also gotten stronger. Hearing those words, Yifan immediately realized he was completely surrounded by an enormous army of skeletons. Looking around at the countless undead closing in from every direction, he shouted in disbelief. Just a tiny bit. The confidence on Yifan's face instantly disappeared. His expression was now filled with fear as he realized just how dangerous the situation had become. Looking at the skeletons surrounding him, he desperately shouted, "No, don't hit the face." But the next moment, every single skeleton charged toward him at once, attacking him from every direction without giving him the slightest chance to escape. Within only a few seconds, Yifan's condition became absolutely miserable. Surrounded by thousands of skeletons, he was beaten so badly that he suffered another completed defeat. Watching everything come to an end, Fang Xiu calmly looked toward Professor Chun and announced, "Today's sparring session ends here." Hearing that, Professor Chun let out a helpless sigh before saying, "Yifan probably won't be able to train for a week. By the way, are you really not planning to establish a Necromancer Research Association?" Hearing the question, Fang Xiu immediately replied, "No." Although his answer sounded simple, deep inside he was already thinking, if I let them research me and discover that I have a system, that would be truly troublesome. The scene then shifted back to the skill repository. A mysterious woman slowly walked toward a magical crystal and carefully examined the information stored inside it. The moment she finished reading it, her eyes widened in complete shock. Staring at the crystal in disbelief, she couldn't stop herself from saying, "A necromancer actually registered a new skill?" In the skill repository, Su Xingyin walks over to a bookshelf and picks up a book. The moment she lifts it, a notification instantly appears on her screen. Su Xingyin consumed 20 contribution points, successfully exchanged for the skill. After reading the notification, Su smiles as she flips through the book and says, "Bone Javelin, Bone Shield." To think that skeleton-type spells could be used like this. The developer of this skill is absolutely a genius. I must tell Dad about this. The scene immediately shifts and we arrive inside Su Qingyo's office. After seeing Teacher Lu, the principal asks, "Teacher Lu, why are you here again?" After listening to the principal, Teacher Lu says, "Principal, I must apply once again to add Fang Yu to the seed list." At that moment, Professor Chin places both of his hands on the desk and says to the principal, "That's right. I can also vouch for him." After hearing Professor Chin's words, the principal closes his eyes and calmly takes a sip of tea before saying, "Old Chun, why are you also joining in on this nonsense? Even if a necromancer performs well now, they won't have enough corresponding strength skills to learn in the future." While the principal is still speaking and sipping his tea, Professor Chin suddenly says, "But he has already comprehended 2 necromancer skills on his own." The moment those words leave Professor Chin's mouth, the principal spits out all the tea in shock. Staring at him with wide eyes, he says, "Comprehending new skills is nothing. The important thing is that the skill's effects must be good." After hearing that, Teacher Lu immediately replies, his skill intensity. Before Teacher Lu can finish speaking, Su Xingyin walks into the principal's office. She is none other than the principal's daughter. Smiling brightly, she says, "Dad, 2 new necromancer skills have appeared in the skill repository." Hearing this, the principal is completely stunned. Necromancer skills? Seeing how shocked he is, Su activates both skills and shows them to her father before saying, "I roughly studied them for a bit. Although I haven't finished learning them yet, the skills' effects are definitely amazing. Dad, do you know who the developer of these skills is?" After hearing everything she says, the principal slowly lowers his head. Meanwhile, Su continues smiling as she excitedly says, "I want to take him as my master." After hearing that, the principal replies, "Sazinian, I'm afraid you can't take him as your master." The moment she hears that, Su immediately asks, "Why?" The principal answers, "Because he is still just a student." The scene shifts once again. Inside the classroom, Fang Yu is quietly sitting at his desk when Yifan suddenly points a finger at him and shouts, "My rival, hurry and fight me." After hearing Yifan's challenge, Fang Yu sighs and says, "Again? How many times have you challenged me already? Don't you need to cultivate and improve?" Hearing that, Yifan smiles confidently. "This time is different. Over the past few days, with Baizakin's help, my strength has advanced by leaps and bounds. I can definitely defeat you. As he says that, he proudly places his hand on Baizakin's shoulder. Baizakin immediately makes an annoyed face and says, "It was you who begged me on your knees in public, okay? I only agreed to avoid misunderstandings." After listening to both of them, Fang Yu looks at Baizakin and asks, "Help improve strength?" The moment she hears his question, Baizakin makes an awkward expression before explaining, "When I was sleeping a few days ago, I comprehended a super useful support skill, Lullaby. This skill can speed up spirit power recovery and at the same time enhance the effects of meditation or training. However, this skill can only be used 3 times a day." As soon as Bai Shaoqian finishes speaking, Yifan places both hands on the desk, smiles proudly, and says to Fang Zhu, "I spent 2 contribution points every week just to exchange for this opportunity." After hearing both of them one after another, Fang Zhu thinks to himself, does this guy want to spend his entire life paying off debts? While he is still thinking, Yifan confidently shouts once again, "Come on. This time I have the confidence to defeat you." Even after hearing Yifan's challenge, Fang Zhu falls into thought again. However, about improving the effects of meditation and training, I wonder if it also has an effect on the skeleton, Fang Zhu. The moment that thought crosses his mind, Fang Zhu suddenly stands up, grabs Bai Shaoqian by both shoulders, and urgently says, "Shaoqian, can you sell your remaining usage of Lullaby to me?" Seeing him suddenly act like this, Bai Shaoqian is completely surprised. It's not impossible. Standing beside her, even Yifan is left dumbfounded. "Hey, don't ignore me." The instant Yifan says that, Fang Zhu suddenly summons several skeletons and says, "Play with these skeletons first. Remember to transfer the contribution points to me after you finish." As soon as he finishes speaking, the skeletons immediately surround Yifan from every direction. Looking at the skeletons around him, Yifan angrily shouts, "Bastard! How dare you look down on me like this?" Meanwhile, on the other side, Fang Zhu says to Bai Shaoqian, "Please use Lullaby on me." After hearing his request, Bai Shaoqian activates her skill. A green aura instantly begins surrounding her body, while Fang Xiu quietly sits down right in front of her. Only a few seconds later, his consciousness appears inside the undead realm. His skeleton clone is sitting there surrounded by a dark aura that continuously flows around its body. A few moments later, Fang Xiu slowly stands up, clenches his fist, and says, "Very good." The effect of Lullaby can also influence the skeleton clone. At that moment, a system notification appears. Clone skeleton, rank apprentice upper, attribute strength 18, constitution 7, agility 7, spirit 6, equipment bone spear gray inferior, skills skeletal armament, instinct brutal strike mastered, charge proficient, weapon mastery proficient, parry grasped, battle cry grasped, soul power 50. After reading the notification, Fang Xiu smiles and says, "I can use you guys perfectly to test out the clone's skill effects." Just then, another skeleton approaches him from behind. Without hesitation, the skeleton launches a full-powered attack, but Fang Xiu effortlessly blocks it. Right after stopping the attack, he delivers a devastating counterattack and continues unleashing one strike after another. After finishing the continuous assault, he smiles and says, "Even the system rewards gained have increased by 10%. This Lullaby is truly a divine skill." While he is saying that, even more skeletons suddenly begin charging toward him from behind. However, with a single swing after another, Fang Xiu keeps cutting them all down. But no matter how many skeletons he defeats, even more continue appearing before him. Looking at the endless army in front of him, he says, "There's still a whole undead legion." As soon as he says those words, Fang Xiu lets out a thunderous roar. "Come at me together, you scum." The force of his roar is so overwhelming that all the skeletons standing before him begin collapsing one after another. He continues shouting with even greater intensity, "I can still become more stronger." Just as he is about to continue speaking, the boss of all those skeletons suddenly appears right in front of him. The moment Fang Zhu sees it, he says, "A boss spawned directly in the beginning in village?" Fang Xiu stands face to face with the skeleton, staring directly at it. Suddenly, the skeleton boss raises its massive sword high into the air and unleashes a devastating slash toward him. The attack is so powerful that Fang Xiu barely manages to dodge it. and the instant the blade crashes into the ground, the entire area shatters apart. After narrowly escaping the attack, he thinks to himself, if this attack hits me, I'll definitely die. The moment that thought crosses his mind, he charges toward the skeleton boss by running along its enormous sword, thinking, since defense is completely useless, then I'll take the initiative to attack. As soon as he gets within striking distance, Fang Xiu leaps into the air with a shout and delivers a crushing blow to the skeleton's shoulder. He immediately follows up with one attack after another without giving it any room to breathe. However, as he lands on the opposite side, he suddenly thinks, what is he going to do? So decisive. In the very next moment, the skeleton boss launches a ferocious counterattack that connects directly with Fang Xiu. The impact is so overwhelming that he is sent flying through the air before crashing violently into a massive rock. Severely injured, he slowly steadies himself and says, good thing I shattered one of its arms in advance. Otherwise, that hit would have caused all my bones to fall apart. However, its weakness has also been exposed. Just as Fang Xiu finishes speaking, the skeleton activates one of its skills. It begins spinning at incredible speed while charging straight toward him. Watching this bizarre attack, Fang Xiu is completely stunned and immediately starts dodging. The instant he avoids the attack, he says, what is he trying to do? He's spinning. Not good. It's actually using the centrifugal force of spinning to make up for the strength of its lost arm, directly shattering the entire mountain. Moreover, during its spin, I have absolutely no way to aim at its weakness. It's aiming at me again. Where does this bag of bones get such a strong desire to fight? While desperately avoiding the spinning attacks, Fang Xiu unknowingly retreats toward a cliff. When he reaches the edge, he realizes there is nowhere left to run. Looking behind him, he exclaims in shock, oh no, it's a dead end. The moment he turns around, the skeleton boss is already charging toward him at terrifying speed. Taking a deep breath, Fang Xiu assumes a fighting stance and says, I can only risk it all. Just the sword wind alone is already enough to scrape bones and shear flesh. The instant he finishes speaking, he dashes forward at full speed while thinking, concentrate and observe. I see an opening. Only seconds later, Fang Xiu lands a devastating strike on the skeleton boss. The enormous skeleton lets out a painful roar, and seeing it struggle, he smirks and says, such a big guy, but actually has osteoporosis. Go back and get some calcium. As soon as he notices the opening, he thinks, the soul fire core is exposed. Now's the time. While thinking that, Fang Xiu raises his weapon into the air and says, I knew it. At the very same moment, the skeleton boss also raises one of its arms toward the sky, causing a mysterious magic circle to appear above it. Seeing this, Fang Xiu says, those wings couldn't possibly just be for show. But unfortunately, my system isn't just for show either. Immediately, a system notification appears before him. Web spell and skeletal armament fusion deduction in progress. Deduced skill, bone shackles successfully. Bone shackles, apprentice-level proficient condenses undead mana into sturdy bone shackles to bind the enemy, making it difficult for them to move or fight. The binding strength, duration, casting distance, and other effects depend on the spirit attribute and skill proficiency. After reading the notification, Fang Xiu smiles and says, very good, exactly as I deduced. Skill deduction can fuse the characteristics of other professional skills, turning them into even more powerful undead skills. After saying that, Fang Xiu begins gathering energy at the tip of his finger. His fingertip starts shining with an intense light, and he calmly says, you like to fly. The instant those words leave his mouth, he releases the attack toward the skeleton boss. In an instant, massive bone shackles wrap themselves around the skeleton boss's body. Fang Xiu immediately yanks the chains with tremendous force, dragging the giant skeleton crashing down onto the ground. The moment it falls, he says, I advise you not to struggle because the more you struggle, the more excited I get. As he finishes speaking, Fang Xiu rushes forward and delivers one final devastating strike with his weapon. The impact is so powerful that the skeleton boss's skull is completely shattered. His hand glows brilliantly as a blazing light begins emerging from the skeleton's head. Looking at the glowing flame, Fang Xiu says, the Bone Angel's soul fire. I'll gladly accept it. The moment he absorbs it, another system notification appears before him. Soul power plus 100. After reading the notification, Feng Yu says, "It actually added so much soul power, but why hasn't my body grown?" Almost immediately, another system notification appears. Detected that the base attributes have reached the race limit. You can consume soul power to initiate race evolution. After reading the message, Feng Yu says, "So, it has already reached the race limit. No wonder I can't continue to gain attributes. What else is there above the sky? I want to see." At that moment, yet another system notification appears. Current race, apprentice level skeleton. Evolution path, black iron level skeleton warrior. Estimated consumption, 100 points of soul power. Begin evolution. Without any hesitation, Feng Yu presses yes and declares, "My path of evolution officially begins now." As soon as he says those words, a smile slowly spreads across his face. His eyes begin glowing brilliantly, and an evil grin appears on his face. At the same moment, another system notification appears on the screen. Skeleton Feng Yu race evolution in progress. Our hero is sitting in one place when all of a sudden he starts screaming. At that very moment, a notification appears on his screen. Bone Warrior evolution successful. Then another notification pops up. Base attributes have undergone a leap. Strength 30, Constitution 30, Agility 30, Spirit 30. After reading the notification, our hero says, "Oh, the evolved clone actually has an additional talent." At that very moment, another notification appears on our hero's screen. A blessing bestowed upon the strong by the undead will. Only the most powerful individuals of the skeleton race have a chance to obtain it. Damage dealt to skeletons and their evolved species is slightly increased and damage received is slightly reduced. After reading the notification, our protagonist says, "A specific enhancement tailored against skeletons. This is to let me grind monsters faster in the undead realm." While our hero is saying this, a skeleton slowly approaches him from behind. The very next moment, the skeleton delivers a powerful blow straight to our hero's head. However, the attack does absolutely nothing to him. Looking at the skeleton, our hero calmly says, "The damage is indeed reduced. In the future, I won't need to defend against the lowest level little skeletons. Even skeletal armament can be upgraded." The moment he finishes speaking, another notification appears on our hero's screen. Race evolution. Talent elevated. New skeletal armament can be acquired. Upgrade equipment. After reading it, our hero clicks yes. The instant he presses it, an armor-like shield completely covers his body, and another notification immediately appears. Upgrade complete. Unlock bone armor. After reading the notification, our hero says the bone armor has completely fused with this body. The moment he says that, another notification appears on his screen. Bone armor. White common armor condensed from bone essence can slightly increase full body defense. After reading it, our hero smiles and says, "I feel my strength has increased a lot." The moment he finishes speaking, our hero looks toward the skeleton sitting in the distance. After staring at it for a moment, he smiles and says, "Sorry, but I'm going to use you for some practice." Go counts as time, too. The instant he says that, our hero rushes forward to launch a powerful attack. Seeing him charging over, the skeleton is instantly terrified. However, halfway through the attack, our hero suddenly stops his movement, making the skeleton believe that it has survived. But the very moment it lets its guard down, our hero's next strike instantly crushes its skull. The force behind the attack is so overwhelming that even the massive rock the skeleton had been leaning against shatters into pieces. At that very moment, our hero smiles and says, "Sorry to disappoint you. I was just letting the fist wind fly for a bit." Paired with bone armor, the damage against skeletons has also increased significantly. Just then another notification appears on his screen. Strength plus 0. Z1 soul power plus 0.5. After reading it, our hero says, "However, killing the small mobs here doesn't improve me much anymore." After saying that, our hero sits down a short while later. Resting one hand on his head, he lets out a helpless sigh and says, "Oh no, fighting the boss took up too much time." At that very moment, the scene shifts and we see our hero return to the real world. His condition doesn't look very good and he is leaning on Ba Zion for support. After seeing our hero in such a condition, Ba Zawachan anxiously asks, "Are you okay?" You got hurt while meditating just now. Hearing her words, our hero thinks to himself, it was an injury from the boss fight just now. I can't be this careless in the future. After thinking that, he looks at Bazayakin and says, I'm fine. I just encountered a situation while meditating. The moment our hero finishes speaking, he turns around and starts walking away. However, before he can go very far, Effin suddenly calls out our hero's name from behind and says, those bones you summoned can no longer restrain me. Fight me fair and square. The instant he finishes speaking, Effin immediately charges toward our hero, preparing to launch another attack. At that very moment, our hero calmly activates his skill, Bone Shackles. Instantly, countless chains burst out from his hand and shoot toward Ian from every direction, tightly wrapping around his entire body and leaving him completely restrained. After witnessing our hero's skill, Effin looks completely unconvinced and says, unfair. You used a skill I've never seen before. Let's do it over. After hearing Ian's complaint, our hero calmly replies, come find me when you've saved up enough contribution points next time. The moment Effin hears those words, he immediately shouts, I've never seen this bone shackle skill before. Stop just watching and help me untie this. However, after hearing him, our hero simply ignores him and starts walking away without looking back. Standing off to the side, Bazio-chin has been watching everything unfold from beginning to end. She is completely stunned by what she has just witnessed and can't help but say, just how strong is Feng Zhu? Anyway, at that very moment, the scene shifts once again, and we see our hero walking somewhere by himself. While walking, our hero suddenly takes out his phone. Looking at the screen, he quietly says, it's already Friday so soon. After awakening, I've been so busy getting stronger. It's been a long time since I went home to visit. As soon as he finishes speaking, the scene shifts once again. This time, we see our hero standing outside the Resource Exchange Department building. A short while later, he walks up to the service counter. After noticing him, the teacher sitting behind the counter politely asks, does this student need any help? After hearing the teacher's question, our hero hands over his card and says, please, help me exchange 10 contribution points for 100,000 Longia currency. The moment the teacher hears his request, they take the card from our hero and begin checking the information on the computer. While checking the records, the teacher looks at our hero and says, contribution points are hard to come by. Isn't it a bit of a waste to just exchange them for money? Hearing those words, our hero calmly replies, it's fine. I need this money right now. As soon as the teacher hears our hero's answer, they hand him a bag and say, all right, if you have any other exchange needs in the future, you can contact me again. After taking the bag, our hero politely thanks the teacher and says, thank you, teacher. With this money, they should be able to live a little better, too. At that very moment, the scene shifts once again, and we see our hero walking into Yunduo Orphanage while carrying the bag. Inside, a group of little children are happily running around and playing together. Just then, our hero walks over to a young woman who is smiling as she watches the children and says, these kids are so energetic. I wonder how many of them will successfully awaken. While she is still speaking, our hero suddenly calls out to her from behind, Sister Ruru. The moment Ruru turns around and sees our hero standing there, her face instantly lights up with excitement. Smiling warmly, our hero says, I'm back. The moment our hero says, I'm back, all the little children immediately rush toward him with excited smiles on their faces. They surround him in an instant and happily shout, Brother Zhu is back. Did you bring us anything delicious? Seeing the children crowding around our hero the moment he arrives, the entire place is instantly filled with laughter and joy. After hearing the children's excited voices, Ruru smiles helplessly and says, you little glutton, Brother Feng Zhu just got back and you're already asking for food. As soon as she finishes speaking, another children's innocent words makes the atmosphere even more heartwarming. After that, Ruru looks at our hero with a curious expression and asks, I heard your school already did the awakening test. Your result? Hearing her question, our hero smiles slightly before answering. The awakening was successful. I'm a necromancer. The moment Ruru hears his answer, her face instantly fills with excitement. Looking at our hero with genuine happiness, Ruru says, that's great. As long as the awakening was successful, that's what matters. As soon as the children hear that our hero has become a necromancer, they immediately begin talking all at once. One child says, "A necromancer." Another says, "How scary." Then a third child excitedly shouts, "Skeletons are so cool. I want to summon skeletons, too." After hearing the children's excited chatter, our hero smiles before summoning a tiny baby skeleton and letting the children play with it. The moment they see the adorable little skeleton, every child becomes incredibly excited. One of them happily shouts, "It's a skeleton. Let's throw our heads and spill our hot blood." While another child excitedly says, "The tiny one is so fun. Quick, pass the head to me." While all the children continue playing happily with the baby skeleton, our hero walks over to Ruru and hands her the bag he brought with him. Looking at her, he calmly says, "Right, this is for the director." The moment Ruru sees the bag, she looks completely surprised and asks in confusion, "This is?" Before Ruru can finish what she is about to say, a voice suddenly echoes from behind them. Oh my, what a heartwarming scene. Hearing those unexpected words, our hero immediately turns around. Standing behind him is an unknown man with several companions, slowly walking toward them with a smile on his face. As the mysterious man continues walking forward with both hands tucked casually inside his pockets, he smiles at everyone before saying, "I wonder if my appearing right now would disturb you." At Yudo Orphanage, a suspicious crowd gathers outside, looking like total bad news. Sister Ruru steps in front to confront them, asking why they're here early when they promised a couple of days. The thug shoves her down hard, screaming about how no one delays money owed to the Tiger Claw gang. Standing over her, the thug makes it clear that today is the absolute final deadline. If they don't pay up immediately, the entire orphanage land used as collateral becomes gang property. As the guy laughs, a little girl quietly sneaks up beside Sister Ruru. She suddenly hurls herself straight into the thug, declaring herself the world's #1 troublemaker, defending her sister. The thug tried to kick the kid, leaving Sister Ruru screaming out for Xing in horror. Before the guy's foot can even reach the little girl, Fanha's skeleton clone swoops in out of nowhere to block the kick. The thug panics and stumbles back after his kick gets blocked by a literal summoned skeleton. Fanho steps up and places a reassuring hand on the little girl's head, ordering the thug to apologize immediately or face the consequences. One of the henchmen whispers to his leader, Brother Hu, pointing out that Joe is just a necromancer. Ghost-faced martial artist Liu, who ignites with aura and completely shatters the skeleton clone in one strike, dismissing Zhao as a trash class for trying to act tough. Fanha doesn't even blink at the display, casually wondering if this guy is supposed to be a professional. Walking alongside Sister Ruru, Joe asks who these creeps are, and she explains they came from the Tiger Claw Training Equipment Company under the pretext of selling gear for the kids. Flashback shows the kids practicing on training equipment as Ruru reveals she and the director took out a loan to buy the gear early so the kids wouldn't fall behind. She explains that the company's entire business model was just a front for an illegal loan shark scam. Ruru anxiously bites her lip as compound interest makes the debt impossible to pay, causing Fongo to snap at her for keeping such a massive problem a secret. The lead loan shark points aggressively at Joe, warning him to stay out of adult business since a broke kid definitely doesn't have a casual 100,000 loan Sha currency lying around. Joe cuts him off mid-lecture by chucking a loaded briefcase straight at his face, yelling catch as the thug frantically grabs at midair. Joe steps up to hand over the 100 grand and tells the thugs to scram, leaving Rur completely baffled at where he secured that much cash. The goon pops the briefcase open and confirms it's all legit, calling over his boss to verify the stack. Boss, who hurls the briefcase straight into the dirt, yelling at his crew to shut their mouths, gritting his teeth, who admits his boss wants the orphanage's land itself, making AH 100,000 look like absolute pocket change, pointing his bat and straight at Joe, who scoffs at the money, while Joe calmly demands to know what else they want since the debt is paid. Who flashes 5 fingers in Joe's face, claiming the delayed payment bumped their total up to a wild 500,000. Ruru panics at the crazy number, but Joe just gives a calm smirk, realizing these thugs were only ever here to cause trouble, who yells right back, openly admitting it and questioning why a bunch of orphans deserve to occupy prime real estate. The Tiger Claw gang thugs charge him with weapons out, hyping themselves up to seize the orphanage land by force today. Fanho just smirks at the little mob, casually dropping summoned skeleton to match their minion energy. An ominous aura washes across the field, instantly making the blonde thug break into a nervous sweat. A squad of armored skeleton warriors manifests right in front of the Fanjo, stands calmly, as his giant skeleton warrior looms behind him, telling the thugs to face the consequences. One of the skeletons leans right into the blonde thug's space, interrupting his smoke break. Trying to act tough, the blonde thug hopes that necromancers are the weakest class and anyone can shatter a rookie summons. The mob storms into the orphanage grounds, hurling insults and telling the kids to get out of their way. A terrified little girl curls up on the ground, crying out for help. Fanho officially loses his patience, flinging out dark aura and ordering his summons to scatter. The thugs laugh in delusion, rushing head first into the skeleton squad, thinking it's an easy win. A thug swings a spiked club full force at a skeleton warrior, but the summit's eyes just flare up with blue fire. Utterly unbothered, the skeleton warrior cleaves forward with its massive blade, sending a thug flying through the air like a complete rag doll. As blood sprays and the thug screams in agony over his severed hand, terrified by how ridiculously strong these summons actually are, the skeleton gently covers a young boy's eyes to spare him from the carnage. Watching from the side, the mace-wielding thug can't comprehend how a simple student summons such absurdly strong skeletons. Assuming a squishy necromancer is useless in melee, he leaps in with a full-force bone-shattering strike. Sister Rura frantically yells for Fanha to dodge, but he doesn't even bother moving. The strike lands with a massive explosion, completely stopped by Fanha's translucent bone shield. The thug panics in utter disbelief, realizing his ultimate move didn't even leave a scratch. Without missing a beat, Fanha raises his hand and casts bone shackles, binding the guy midair in spectral green chains. With a swift tug, he yanks the chains down, violently slamming the thug face first into the pavement. Coughing up blood while pinned to the floor, the thug learns the hard way that this student is built different. Bound tight in glowing bone shackles, the guy thrashes on the ground while screaming at Fanha that he's going to kill him. Before he can even finish his rant, two massive skeleton clones manifest behind him and lock giant saw blades right around his neck. Towering over his pinned target with glowing blue eyes and dark aura radiating off him, Fanha drops a cold ultimatum. Kneel and apologize, or straight up. Sweating profusely beneath the suffocating pressure, Lu Hu stammers helplessly, all his arrogant bravado vanishing in an instant. Crushed by Fong Zhao's overwhelming aura, the scarred enforcer drops to his knees, completely surrendering and admitting his mistake. His henchmen stand frozen in stunned disbelief, utterly speechless as they watch their fearless leader grovel in the dirt. Terrified of the imposing skeleton warriors flanking them, the entire gang drops to the stone courtyard, desperately begging for mercy. Unmoved by their sudden humility, Fanha looks down with cold disdain, telling them to take their compensation and vanish from his sight. Glancing nervously at the grinning skull towering beside him, Lu swallows his pride, paralyzed by sheer dread. Without wasting a single second, the humiliated enforcer scrambles to his feet, ordering his gang to immediately clear out. When a thug asks if they're really just walking away, Lu snaps in frustration, asking if any of them is suicidal enough to fight a monster like that, grinding his teeth in bitter humiliation, vowing in a venomous whisper that they will buy their time and make their move on the orphanage the moment that monstrous kid leaves. Back in the Sun courtyard, the suffocating tension instantly melts away. Sister Ruer looks at Fong Zhao with wide, astonished eyes, asking how on earth he became so overwhelmingly powerful. Though Fongo merely scratches his head with a modest smile, chuckling that his awakened profession must simply be a bit stronger than most. Within moments, the young orphans rush forward in pure adoration, cheering and shouting with bright, beaming smiles as they shower their savior with praise. Gently patting a little girl's head, Fanho warmly encourages them to train hard in the future, promising that one day each and every one of them can grow up to be just as strong. Turning towards Sister Ruru, Fanha gently asks her to take him to see Grandma Yun, to which she warmly agrees with a soft nod. As they stroll along the stone path through the courtyard, Fang Hao asks if something is wrong with Grandma Yan's health. Learning that her old age has brought lingering ailments, Sister Rura softly explains that Grandma Yan overworked herself to the bone, raising them all when she was young, leaving behind deep-seated illnesses that won't easily heal. Under the bright, tranquil sky, she reassures him that seeing how successful he has become will surely bring immense joy to Grandma Yun's heart. Stepping inside the quiet room, Grandma Yun looks up from her book in pleasant surprise. While Fanha warmly explains that things have been going smoothly for him at Haising High School, setting down a bag full of supplies, Fanha tells her he came to see everyone during his break. Though Grandma gently wonders why he brought so many things, Sister Rura proudly chimes in, revealing that Fanha has grown into a dependable young man and even cleared their debt for the training equipment, leaving Grandma Mei Yun completely stunned. Worry washes over Grandma Yan's face as she frantically asks if he took out a dangerous loan. But Fanga offers a calm, reassuring smile, promising her that he earned every single coin with his own 2 hands. Fanha smooths over her worries with an easy half-truth, explaining that a remarkably generous classmate at the academy pays him handsomely just to serve as a sparring partner. A sudden, harsh fit of coughing racks Grandma's frail frame. Yet even through the pain, a proud warmth fills her heart, knowing that her boy has truly become a professional with a radiant future ahead. Quickly stepping to her side to steady her, Fanha asks with deep concern if she is all right, only for the old woman to gently wave him off, insisting it is just a lingering ailment that a little rest will cure. Fixing him with a stern yet deeply affectionate gaze, she tells him not to waste his energy fretting over her, urging him to keep his focus entirely on the critical midterm exams ahead. Curious, Fanho asks how she knew about his upcoming midterm, prompting Grandma to chuckle warmly, reminding him that Sister Wenra had walked this exact same path just a few years before. Thinking back, he recalls that Wenra was a few years ahead of him, having long since graduated to fight on the brutal frontline battlefields. Grandma gently urges him to rest well before the exam, expressing complete faith that his results will surpass even when ruse, a promise, Fanha quietly takes the heart. Stepping out into a hallway, he softly pulls the bedroom door shut behind him to let the old woman rest. Approaching Sister Ruru, Fanho pulls out his communicator and transfers 20 contribution points, leaving her flustered and waving her hands in protest at such an immense gift. Placing a reassuring hand on her arm, he explains that since he cannot visit often, this is his only way to support everyone, leaving her touched and gently nodding in acceptance. Leading him down the hall, she mentions that Wen's old room is currently unoccupied, offering it to him so he can settle in comfortably. She warmly asks if there is anything special he would like to eat, but Fanho politely declines, reassuring her that he is more than capable of looking after himself. Fanho stands in a quiet room, his gaze resting silently upon a framed photograph sitting on the desk. Picking up the picture of Sister Wenu, he softly reflects on her absence, wondering how she is holding up on the perilous front lines. Pushing the distant worries aside, he sits cross-legged upon the bed as a dark teal aura begins to flare around him. Determined to ace the midterm exam and grow strong enough to protect Grandma Yun and the orphanage. With resolved focus glowing in his eyes, he issues the command to the system, plunging his consciousness directly into the undead realm. Under a blood-drenched sky and a sickly crimson moon, Fanha's skeleton clone wanders deeper into the barren expanse, surrounded by the colossal, petrified rib cages of ancient beasts. With the weak mobs on the wasteland's outskirts no longer offering enough experience to level up, his glowing blue gaze turns toward the uncharted depths. Venturing further into the foreboding darkness, he casually crushes bone beneath his gauntlet, wondering what kind of formidable horrors might be lurking within. Emerging from the gloom, 2 armored undead stepped into view, a swordsman and an archer. Fanho glances them over, noting their slightly better gear, though their presence feels just as ordinary as before. Without a moment's hesitation, the undead swordsman lunges forward, blade raised high, while the archer takes aim from the rear. With a sharp metallic ring, Fanhao effortlessly raises his defense, cleanly halting the savage overhead right in its tracks. Staring down his attacker with a smug, glowing gaze. He silently mocks the foe, realizing the monsters deep within the wasteland aren't nearly as threatening as he had anticipated. Suddenly, a whistling arrow tears through the air, aimed directly for his skull, deflecting the sudden shot. Manhwa realizes these wasteland fiends are far more cunning than before, already coordinating their strikes to pin him down. Refusing to let himself be whittled down from afar, he locks his glowing gaze onto the archer, immediately unleashing charge to bridge the distance in a single explosive burst. Manhwa's strike hits only empty air, leaving him stunned as the skeletal warrior dissolves into a mere afterimage. Looking across the field, he realizes these fiends haven't just grown smarter, they're actively coordinating and casting combat skills. The shielded skeleton suddenly charges in, slamming its glowing green barrier straight into him with violent force, reacting in a flash. Manhwa counters with after-image strike, effortlessly cleaving straight through the armored monster, gaining a quick boost of plus 0.3 constitution and plus 0.3 soul power. He immediately spots another volley of arrows whistling his way. Raising his defenses, he effortlessly parries the incoming barrage as the arrows shatter against his guard. Locking onto the distant sniper, Manhwa reels back and unleashes a lethal bone javelin. The projectile streaks across the battlefield, obliterating the skeletal archer on impact. With a brittle crunch, the fallen archer disintegrates into ash, releasing a luminous wisp of azure soul fire that drifts across the gloomy battlefield, absorbing the essence directly into his skeletal frame. A system prompt flashes, boosting his agility and soul power by 0.3. Letting out an exhausted sigh, Manhwa mutters to himself, realizing the treacherous depths of the undead wasteland are far more lethal than he ever anticipated.